My name's Barbara, and for over 2 decades, I'd been married to Tom. We lived in a cozy apartment provided by the real estate company where I worked as an appraiser. Our son, Jake, had graduated college and moved out, leaving us empty nesters. Tom worked a steady office job, and for years, our relationship had been, well, steady too. But lately, things had been different. Tom's criticism of my every move was becoming unbearable. Still, I tried to keep the peace, hoping it was just a phase. As my 50th birthday approached, we decided to celebrate with friends and family. I was excited, thinking it might bring us closer together. We booked a nice restaurant and sent out invitations. Everything seemed perfect. The day of the party arrived, and guests started showing up. I greeted everyone with a smile, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My parents hadn't arrived yet, which was unusual. They were always punctual. As the party got into full swing, I excused myself to make a quick call to my mom. "Mom, where are you guys?" "The party started," I said, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. There was a long pause before she spoke. "Barbara, honey, I'm so sorry. Your father, he passed away this morning." The world stopped. I couldn't breathe. "What? No, that can't be right. You're joking, right?" "I wish I was, sweetheart. I didn't want to tell you today. I thought I'd wait until tomorrow, so you could enjoy your birthday." I ended the call in a daze, stumbling back to the party. Tom noticed my distress immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, pulling me aside. I told him about my dad, tears streaming down my face. His reaction shocked me to my core. "That's terrible, Barbara, but we can't cancel the party now. We've paid for everything, and it's not fair to the guests." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "Are you serious? My father just died." "Look, I know it's hard, but think about it logically. We can't just send everyone home." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Without another word to Tom, I turned to address our guests. "I'm sorry, everyone, but I have to leave. My father passed away this morning. Please, enjoy the food and drinks. I need to be with my mother right now." As I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, I heard Tom behind me. "Barbara, don't be dramatic. You can go tomorrow." I spun around, fury in my eyes. "Dramatic? My father is dead, Tom." "Dead? And you want me to stay and party? What the hell is wrong with you?" I left him standing there, mouth agape, as I rushed out of the restaurant. The cool night air hit my face, and I took a deep breath, trying to process everything that had just happened. When I arrived at my childhood home, I found my mother sitting in the dark, clutching one of Dad's sweaters. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Oh, Barbara," she whispered, opening her arms. I fell into her embrace, and we cried together, mourning the loss of the man we both loved so dearly. As we sat there in the quiet house, I realized that life as I knew it had ended. Not just because of my father's death, but because I'd seen my husband's true colors. The day of the funeral arrived, and I stood beside my mother, greeting mourners and accepting condolences. Jake was there, a steady presence at my side. But as I scanned the crowd, I realized Tom and his family were nowhere to be seen. Their absence was like a slap in the face. After the service, as we gathered at my mother's house, Jake approached me. "Mom, where's Dad? And Grandma and Grandpa?" I shook my head, fighting back tears of anger and disappointment. "I don't know, honey, they didn't come." Jake's face darkened. "What the hell? How could they not show up?" "Language, Jake," I admonished half-heartedly. "But I don't know. I really don't." That evening, after everyone had left and my mother had finally fallen into an exhausted sleep, I called Tom. The conversation that followed only deepened the rift between us. "Where were you today?" I demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. "Barbara, I'm sorry. My parents and I got terribly sick. Must have been something from the restaurant on your birthday." I scoffed. All three of you? Convenient timing. You couldn't even be bothered to show up and support me at my father's funeral. Do you have any idea how that made me feel? Look, I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me? I ended the call without answering, too furious to continue the conversation. The next few weeks were tough. My mother fell into a deep depression, her health declining rapidly. I spent as much time with her as I could, balancing my work commitments with caring for her. Tom, meanwhile, seemed annoyed by the whole situation. One evening, as we sat in our apartment, Tom dropped a bombshell. I think we should consider putting your mother in a nursing home. I stared at him, incredulous. What? No. She doesn't have long left, and I want to spend as much time with her as I can. We argued back and forth, voices rising. Finally, I made a suggestion that would change everything. Let's move into her house. It's bigger, and I can take care of her properly. Tom's face contorted with disgust. Are you serious? I'm not obligated to take care of a sick stranger. I don't want to watch her die, Barbara. His words hit me like a physical blow. A sick stranger? She's my mother, your mother-in-law. The argument raged on for days. Tom refused to budge, and I couldn't believe how heartless he was being. It wasn't until I mentioned that we wouldn't have to pay for housing or groceries that his tune changed. The day we moved into my mother's house was bittersweet. The place was spacious and beautifully renovated, a stark contrast to our company-provided apartment. Tom's eyes lit up as we walked through the rooms, and I could practically see the wheels turning in his head. This place is incredible, he mused, running his hand along the polished banister. Your mother's done well for herself. I bit back a retort about how my father had worked himself to the bone to provide this home. Instead, I focused on settling Mom into her room and making her comfortable. At first, Tom seemed pleased with the arrangement. He bragged to his colleagues about our new living situation, conveniently leaving out the reason for our move. But as days turned into weeks, his true colors began to show. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Tom stormed into the kitchen, his face twisted in disgust. Christ, Barbara, can't you do something about the smell? This whole house reeks of sickness. I slammed down the knife I was using to chop vegetables. That smell is my mother, Tom. She's sick, for God's sake. From that moment on, things only got worse. Tom refused to even enter Mom's room, complaining loudly whenever he had to pass by her door. His disdain for her was palpable, and it broke my heart to see my mother wilt under his contempt. One night, as Tom and I sat in tense silence at the dinner table, Mom cleared her throat. Barbara, Tom, she began, her voice weak but determined. I want to thank you both for taking care of me. I know it hasn't been easy. Tom grunted, not looking up from his plate. I've been thinking, Mom continued. I want to show my appreciation. Tom, I'd like to give you the piece of land the house sits on. And Barbara, dear, the house itself will be yours. I gasped. Mom, no. You don't have to do that. But Tom's head had snapped up, his eyes gleaming with interest. Mom pressed on. I'm ready to sign it over now, no need to wait. And any money left after I'm gone will go to Jake. Tom's face split into a grin. He jumped up, startling us both, and rushed to the wine rack. This calls for a celebration, he crowed, popping open a bottle. As he poured himself a generous glass, he muttered under his breath, maybe the old bat will kick it sooner rather than later. I stared at him, horrified. This man, whom I'd been married to for over 20 years, was gleefully toasting to my mother's death. In that moment, I saw him for what he truly was, a monster wearing the mask of a husband. How dare you, I hissed, standing up so quickly, my chair toppled backward. You heartless bastard. Tom's face darkened. Oh, grow up, Barbara. Your mother's as good as dead already. At least now we'll get something out of this whole ordeal. The argument that followed was explosive. Tom hurled insults at me, calling me a fool and worse. I gave as good as I got, years of pent-up frustration and anger pouring out of me. It ended with Tom storming out, declaring he was going to stay with his parents. Days passed, and Tom remained at his parents' house. Then my boss needed me to go on an urgent business trip. I couldn't refuse, my job was too important, especially now that I was the sole caregiver for my mother. But the thought of leaving her alone terrified me. As I sat by her bedside, explaining the situation, my mother surprised me once again with her selflessness. "Barbara, dear," she said, taking my hand in hers, "why don't you consider placing me in a hospice? Just temporarily, while you're away." I felt my throat constrict. "Mom, no. I can't do that to you." She smiled weakly. "You're not doing anything to me, sweetheart. I'm suggesting it. Those places are comfortable, and I'll be well cared for. It'll give you peace of mind while you're working." Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, realizing she was right. Through my sobs, I managed to say, "Okay, Mom, if that's what you want." The next few days were a whirlwind of arrangements. I found a reputable hospice and got Mom settled in. It broke my heart to leave her there, but I knew it was for the best. I didn't tell Tom about Mom's move to the hospice or my impending trip. He was still living with his parents, supposedly to teach me a lesson. The irony wasn't lost on me, he was the one who needed to learn a thing or two about compassion and decency. The night before my departure, I sent Tom a terse text. "Going on a business trip. Please look after the house." I didn't expect a reply, and I didn't get one. 3 days into my trip, my phone rang. It was Tom. Surprised, I answered, "Hello?" His voice came through, dripping with malice and triumph. "Hello, Barbara. Guess what I've done? I've razed your precious house to the ground. You should have seen it, Barbara. The walls crumbling, the roof caving in. It was beautiful." I felt the blood drain from my face. You what? Why would you do that?" "Why?" He sounded gleeful. "Because now you'll have to beg me to build a new house on my land." "That's right, my land. Your mother gave it to me, remember? You'll be dependent on me, Barbara. Obedient. Submissive. Just like a wife should be." As the reality of what he'd done sank in, I felt a hysterical laugh bubble up in my throat. I let it out, the sound echoing in the empty hotel room. Tom's voice faltered. "Why are you laughing? This isn't funny, Barbara." When I could finally speak, my voice was eerily calm. "Oh, Tom, you fool. Mom changed her mind at the last minute. She saw how you preened and posed for selfies in front of her beautiful home. So she switched it up. The house? That's yours. Or should I say, was yours. But the land? That's mine." There was a long, stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then Tom's voice came back, small and disbelieving. "You're lying." "I'm not," I said, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. "And Tom? I want a divorce." I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. As the adrenaline wore off, a terrifying thought hit me. Tom didn't know about Mom's move to the hospice. He had been willing to destroy the house with her inside. As soon as I returned, I filed for divorce. Tom, predictably, fought me every step of the way. He tried to claim the land, arguing that my mother's verbal agreement superseded any last-minute changes. But I had been smart, I had the paperwork to prove otherwise. The legal battle was ugly, but in the end, I won. The land was mine, and Tom was left with nothing but the rubble of the house he'd destroyed in his misguided attempt at control. Throughout it all, Jake stood firmly by my side. When I told him what his father had done, his face contorted with a mix of disgust and disbelief. "He did what?" Jake had exclaimed. "Mom, I can't believe. I won't talk to him ever again. I don't want anything to do with him." With the divorce finalized and the land officially mine, I made a decision. I sold the property, using the money to buy myself a modest apartment. As for my mother, her condition continued to deteriorate. I visited her every day at the hospice, cherishing every moment we had left together. She passed away peacefully a few months later, with me holding her hand. The funeral was a small, intimate affair. Once again, Tom and his parents were conspicuously absent. But this time, their absence didn't hurt, it was a relief. As I sorted through Mom's belongings in the weeks following her death, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't until I was idly scrolling through eBay one evening that I realized what it was. There, listed for sale, were items I recognized instantly: Mom's antique vase, her favorite armchair, even the pearls Dad had given her on their 25th anniversary. My blood boiled as I realized who was behind this. The next morning, I drove to Tom's parents' house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I knocked on the door, it was my former father-in-law who answered. I was taken aback by his appearance. He looked gaunt, his skin sallow. "Are you ill?" I blurted out before I could stop myself. His face twisted with anger. "I'm perfectly healthy, unlike your parents," he spat. "How dare you ask such tactless questions?" I apologized, more out of habit than genuine remorse. "I'm sorry. I've seen my mother's things for sale online, and I want them back." Tom's mother appeared then, her face a mask of false concern. "Oh, Barbara, dear. Those things belong to us now. After all, the house was Tom's when your mother passed." I felt my temper rising. "That's not how it works, and you know it. Those are my family's heirlooms, and I want them back, now." They refused, and the argument that ensued was ugly. In the end, they kicked me out, slamming the door in my face. But I wasn't about to give up. I went straight to the police station and filed a report. Under threat of legal action, Tom's parents were forced to return my mother's belongings, the jewelry, the furniture, everything. 6 months had passed since the dust settled on my divorce and the drama with Tom and his family. Life had found a new rhythm, and I was slowly healing from the wounds of betrayal. Then, out of the blue, I received news that shook our fragile peace. My former father-in-law had died of cancer. The disease had been in its advanced stages, untreatable by the time it was discovered. Despite the bad blood between us, I felt a pang of sympathy. No one deserves to suffer like that. But my empathy was soon put to the test when I received a summons to the notary's office for the reading of the will. Tom, his mother, Jake, and I were all called to attend. The atmosphere in the notary's office was thick with tension. Tom pretended I didn't exist, avoiding eye contact and acting as if I were a stranger. His mother, on the other hand, couldn't contain her disdain. As I took my seat, she hissed, "How dare you show your face here, you ungrateful gold digger?" I bit my tongue, refusing to stoop to her level. Jake squeezed my hand reassuringly, and we waited in silence for the notary to begin. The notary cleared his throat and began reading the will. What followed left us all stunned. My former father-in-law had bequeathed his house to Jake, while the land and money were left to Tom and his mother. The room erupted into chaos. Tom and his mother were on their feet, faces red with fury. "This is outrageous," Tom shouted. "Everything should have come to us. We're his real family." The notary remained calm, adjusting his glasses. "I'm afraid the will is legally binding. Mr. Johnson was of sound mind when he made these decisions. You won't be able to contest this in court." As we left the office, I could see the wheels turning in Jake's head. He was uncharacteristically quiet, lost in thought. I didn't push him, knowing he'd share when he was ready. 2 weeks later, I was enjoying a rare moment of peace in my apartment when my phone rang. It was my former mother-in-law, her voice shrill with panic. "Barbara, you have to come quickly. Your son, he's gone mad. He's hired construction equipment. He's going to tear down the house. Stop him, please." When I arrived, the scene was chaotic. Heavy machinery loomed over the house. Jake stood to the side, a determined look on his face. Tom and his mother were hysterical, pleading with the construction workers to stop. Jake saw me and walked over. Mom, I know this might seem extreme, but it's retribution. For what they did to Grandma's house, to you, to us. I nodded, understanding the pain and anger that drove him to this point. I know, sweetie. I'm not here to stop you. Jake turned to the foreman and gave a signal. Tom and his mother's screams were drowned out by the sound of crumbling walls and shattering glass. As I watched the house crumble, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of me was horrified at the destruction, remembering the good times we'd had in that home. But another part felt a sense of closure, of karma coming full circle. A couple of weeks after the demolition, I was enjoying a quiet evening at home when an unexpected knock at my door shattered the peace. I opened it to find Tom and his mother standing there, looking disheveled and desperate. "Barbara," Tom began, his voice a mixture of pleading and barely concealed resentment. "We need to talk. We have nowhere to go. We were hoping we could stay with you for a while." I stared at them, dumbfounded. "Stay with me? Are you serious?" "You've always been so kind and responsible," his mother added, her eyes pleading. "We thought." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These people, who had caused me so much pain, who had treated my mother with such disdain in her final days, were now asking for my help. "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not." Their faces fell, but I wasn't finished. Years of pent-up frustration and hurt came pouring out. "Have you forgotten how you treated my mother? How you called her a burden? You were ready to demolish a house with my mother inside, just to teach me a lesson." They at least had the decency to look ashamed, but I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. "We've made mistakes," Tom admitted grudgingly. "But where are we supposed to go?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. Just like I had to." They left, muttering curses under their breath. As soon as the door closed behind them, I blocked their numbers on my phone. I had no desire to be harassed by their calls or messages. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that Tom had sold the land left from the demolished house. With the money, he had bought a tiny apartment in a dilapidated building in the least prestigious area of the city. When I mentioned this to Jake during one of our regular dinners, he scoffed. "That's where they belong," he said, his voice hard. "In a crumbling apartment, surrounded by garbage and ruin. It's fitting, isn't it?" I nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of me felt a twinge of pity for Tom and his mother, reduced to living in such conditions. But a larger part remembered all the pain they had caused, all the cruel words and actions. The past few months had been a whirlwind of positive changes. My work at the real estate company had been going exceptionally well, and I'd just received a generous quarterly bonus. It felt good to be recognized for my hard work, especially after everything I'd been through. I ran my hand over the smooth surface of my mother's old writing desk, now restored to its former glory. The familiar grain of the wood brought back a flood of memories, Mom sitting here, writing her letters, balancing her checkbook. It was as if a piece of her was still with me, watching over me as I built my new life. The sound of my phone ringing pulled me from my reverie. It was Jake, and his excitement was palpable even through the phone. "Mom, I've got news," he exclaimed. "What is it, honey?" I asked, though I had a feeling I knew what was coming. "I proposed to Emily, and she said yes." My heart swelled with joy. Emily was a wonderful girl, kind and smart, and she brought out the best in Jake. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful news. I'm so happy for you both." We chatted for a while about their plans, and then Jake's tone turned serious. "Mom, there's something else I want to talk to you about. The wedding. I've decided I don't want to invite Dad or Grandma. After everything they've done, I don't want them there on the happiest day of my life." I took a deep breath. "Jake, it's entirely your decision. Your wedding day should be filled with love and joy, surrounded by people who truly care about you and Emily. If that's what feels right to you, then I support you completely." After we hung up, my thoughts drifted to Tom and his mother. I didn't seek out information about them, but news had a way of reaching me through the grapevine. Last I'd heard, Tom was working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, supporting himself and his mother in that tiny, rundown apartment. They had tried to make my life a living hell, to break me down and control me. Instead, they'd ended up creating their own personal hell, while I had risen from the ashes stronger than ever. I picked up a framed photo of my parents from the newly restored side table. "I wish you could see this, Mom and Dad," I whispered. "I think you'd be proud."